What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning into the channel. All my socials, everything is listed below in the chat here. But we're going to go into the Sorceress, Stormweaver. I think it's going to be an excellent choice. If you like cast abilities, controlling elements, this will be the class for you. All classes look great though, so whatever you choose, I'm sure you won't go wrong with. But in my personal opinion, this is what I'll be starting with the Stormweaver. This class just looks amazing. We're going to watch a quick video here just on some gameplay of it, and then we're going to break down all the skills, the skill tree passives, which I think will be very good for a ball lightning, chain lightning build. You know, this is just all what we've seen in the tree itself and the ascendancy class as well. So not all has been shown for the ascendancy tree for Stormweaver, but you know, as we get more information, we'll fine tune the what we think is going to be good for the Stormweaver. So we'll get into this video quick here.
Like I said, I'm a mage, sorc, wizard, whatever you want to do. You know, elemental, temporal magic, that's my thing. Arcane magic. It's always my favorite class in every game. And oh yeah, wait for this one. Anyway, the first time that I played Path of Exile 2 at ExileCon, sorc was so poorly balanced and so underpowered. Actually, at least the first and second, if not third time, sorc always felt really bad. And that was basically my metric for, am I going to like this game? Like, can they do a magic caster properly? Well, this happened. Right off the beach, the very first boss that I killed gave me a +2 level of cold spell skill gems, 47% increased cold damage, and level 2 freezing shards right here. Yeah, you'll just see the difference between the mercenary and this. Now, kind of a concern that I have is the reliance on gear here, because I can't actually attribute how strong I felt in this playtest versus the last one on sorc.
It's only got stronger since
I didn't have this crazy gear
playtest
when I was doing the previous playtest. But I can tell you, if you get good gear, at least on a sorc, if you get a good staff, things will feel really good. You get a good staff, so yeah, then you're really gonna see this build or this ascendancy shine.
I need more time.
Okay, this is on one of the bosses in the start of the campaign. Just devouring them. Devouring the devourer. Easy.
Did a little spin of joy. Had a little fun there. And yeah, that's just with that starting staff, that is the difference in power there.
It's gonna be an OP class.
I saw how strong I was just like, okay, I'm feeling it. I'm kind of seeing it here. And this is the next boss in the next zone.
It just destroys the bosses. Too easy.
Just to confirm that it wasn't a fluke.
This is just the beginning too.
Yeah, so I was very excited. I was very encouraged. I want to call just special attention just how much detail there is to like the physics effects of all the shattering. I'll turn up the audio during some of the fighting a little bit later on. Just the freezing shards going through the flame wall, seeing them lit up and all that, igniting the monsters. The effects are like almost a little too subtle, but it adds a lot of style to it. And I think it's really nice instead of like the Path of Exile 1, like insane flashiness. So yeah, they added a lot of new support gems, and I think that this is really going to be what differentiates Path of Exile 2. As the thing about support gems in Path of Exile 1 is they very often trend, or are picked at least, towards the more, what gives me more damage, right? Like we have some that are a little bit more utility focused. You can do something like Fortify, where you kind of have like a hybrid offense and defense, or you have something like Inspiration, where maybe you're kind of mitigating some mana cost. There are some like interesting upsides in addition to damage, but a lot of the time you're just saying, how do I take the highest damage support gems that I can while not taking too many downsides or getting as much, you know, a little side utility in addition to that. That's what we.
That's the thing too, is when you're taking a lot of these support gems, you don't want to take everything into damage. You need to have a bit of a balance into your defenses too. And you don't want, there's some of them that give you, of course, lots of damage, but it's going to deplete your mana pool. So you don't want to, you got to have a little bit of a balance when you're going through your skills and making sure you're not always just low on mana. You need to have something that's going to increase the mana, which I think we're going to have a couple ideas on how to solve that issue with maintaining your mana while you're casting a lot of these big AoE damage, lots of mana depletion skills. So we have a couple that are located in the skill tree, passive tree, that we'll check out here in a few minutes.
See a lot of the time in Path of Exile 1, and kind of a cool thing, actually not kind of a cool thing, I think one of the most interesting things about Path of Exile 2, and we're gonna see how this plays out, is the forced single support gem. So for example, faster casting right here. If I take a faster casting, I can only have one of those on one of my skills. And because of this, I have to be very intentional in what I use that for. I really don't think it's going to feel like generator.
That's where it's going to get very critical in your choices for where you put certain support gems into what skill, because you can only do it once. Like for faster casting, like he just said, you can only put it in one of these skills. So it's a one-time thing. You can't put multiple faster casting spells into or support gems into multiple skills. So you just got to make very wise decisions when you're placing those support gems with what skill.
It's not going to be like a Diablo 4 snooze.
But on launch, I'll be making a custom build to my liking, kind of like maybe like a ice. We'll start off with ice into lightning, and then go pure lightning later down the road into the campaign. Once we get our ascendancy or Stormweaver, then I'll try to make a very efficient lightning build that might surround around all lightning, spam big AoE damage overall. I have a pretty good idea what I'm going to do with it when that time comes.
It's not generator spender, it's utility, single target, multi-target, utility mobility. And that's like the way that you want to think about it. So I end up using quite a few different skills in my damage rotation. It's going to be more about evaluating the threat and the positioning and the way that everything's happening. And that's how I'm going to be using my different skills dynamically in combat. And for example, Fortress right here. This is one of the cool support gems that it actually makes your flame wall summon, or anything else like ice wall as well, summon in a circle. So you can use this to encircle enemies, encircle yourself, encircle an ally, and then like we'll see this later on when I'm playing with Empy.
That'd be good against bosses.
And then Empy is shooting as a mercenary through my flame wall and then boosting his shots. And there's a lot of interesting additional utility that you can get here through these support gems, instead of just, oh, I'm going to put elemental focus and control destruction on every single skill gem. Just to, even if you're using multiple damaging skills, you'd end up using, you'd use similar support gems. Instead, you have to be very intentional and thoughtful about how you're picking your support gems for your different utility skills. And at least the way that this played out until, like, I've only gotten to the end of Act 2 so far in the playtests, but the way that it's played out, at least in this playtest, was I had a lot of fun playing around with the different support gems. As always, how it works out in an end game, we'll see. Really, really cool thing. So freeze in this game is incredibly, again, everything through the context of only playing through the first 2 acts, but freeze in this game is incredibly powerful, as you've already seen. It works on bosses. You can build up freeze on them, and then there's a lot of stuff building around shattering frozen monsters.
I think each element's going to be very strong, though. Not just freezing.
It's not resource generation, because mana honestly was basically never an issue for me. That was not a problem whatsoever. It's really just about what utility am I trying to navigate or utilize as I'm doing some combat. Things like glaciation right here were actually very interesting. So this one's really cool. Hey, free chilled ground whenever you freeze.
That's a good ability, though.
So, again, additional utility.
So some of the kind of move along into actual gameplay footage here.
Just showing how strong I am. This is about halfway through.
One of the bosses. Yeah. So he's using his flame wall.
Well, yeah, like the I don't know. This is clearly a fidelity.
Look at how he just
upgrade, a huge fidelity
takes
over Path of Exile 1.
Boss's life like down in large chunks, like quarters.
So you can see in the upper left corner, building up the freeze.
So he freezes them and just keeps taking them out with lightning.
Now have the damage numbers. I can go back a little bit. You can see the damage numbers up here. You can see their weaknesses and strengths right here, debuffs, and then the damage numbers, just like Dark Souls. which is pretty cool.
Take your necromancy to the grave where it belongs.
So here's some of the
kind of mousing over a couple things in the passive tree. Didn't see anything crazy. I didn't.
critical overload was a nice one. So for the staff, this one is kind of ideally what you're going to want to look for. This is a level 90 though, but something along these lines, like this one's just craziness. If you can actually, when you hit that level, but something along these lines, like gain 26% damage and extra lightning damage, anything extra. And if very key things to pay attention to in the text, if you see anything that says more, increase more damage, that's actually going to be a multiplicative. Anything that says increased, it just increases it by 1.12%. So it's just like a slight buff to it. So anything more is going to be insanely higher, as it's going to be a multiplicative damage. So that's just something to look out for. And then you have, anything to maximize your mana. And this one is where it gets very, very nice here, where it's a +5 to level of all lightning spell skills. So that's going to juice everything up. 14% increased critical hit chance for spells and 17% increased critical spell damage bonus. So ideally, you're going to want to focus on critting with this build, or with this class, sorry, in the ascendancy for Stormweaver. Some of the other things we've seen here, we have Archmage, which is that's a very nice passive skill to have. We have Cast on Shock, Cast on Freeze, Cast on Ignite. We'll actually get into some of these here in a minute. So Pure Power, that's another good one. It's going to be a 2% increased lightning damage per 10 intelligence. That's going to be a very important one to have if you're doing any sort of lightning build. So in your passive tree, you'll kind of work your way straight up at the very top. That'll be the very top node. So that's a very good one to have. Another one I was looking into was, if you can find that, it'd be to the right of the top of the tree. So this is Arcane Intensity, 3% increased spell damage per 100 maximum mana. That's going to be a very good one as well. Some of the other ones I was looking into here is Archmage. Obviously, this one's going to be a very good passive there. So spells gain 5% of damage as lightning damage for each 100 maximum mana you have. Spells cost an additional 3.5% of your maximum mana. You can just go Arc as well, deals 14 to 81% lightning damage. So you just basically want all these, skills and support gems, dealing around lightning. We have a couple other ones here. Spells gain 5% of damage as lightning damage for each 100 maximum mana you have. Spells cost an additional 3.5% of your maximum mana. You can just go Arc as well, deals 14 to 81% lightning damage. So you just basically want all these, skills and support gems, dealing around lightning. And then obviously the Archmage is a very important one that we're going to want to have for a buff. And this was the Mana Tempest was a spell. That's also a very good one to have here. We're looking into this one. This Wild Shards looked very interesting. Supported skills have a 20% chance to fire 8 additional projectiles in a circle, which I think that could be very good. Support spells that fire projectiles. Supported skills have a chance fire many projectiles in a circle. So we don't know how many projectiles, but you're getting a 20% chance. So cost multiplier 20%, spell projectile. This one could be very good using your lightning balls to create more of those lightning balls to projectile, causing more damage, scaling. I think that'd be very good. Another one I was looking into is physic fragmentation. This is another node on the sorceress skill tree, passive tree. You have 24% chance to, for spells to fire 2 additional projectiles. So you have the 10, plus you can have 2 more. So you could essentially have 12 projectiles. Say if you're using ball lightning or any other sort of lightning skills or whatever you want to go. If you want to go ice build, fire build, it'll be all very good to have those 2. Also another one we were looking at that looked very good. It's this one, pure power. We looked at that 2% increased lightning damage per 10 intelligence. Very, very good to get this one at the very top of that skill tree, like I mentioned. Then we have refocus. This is a great one for your ES. 30% increase energy shield recharge rate. 10% chance for energy shield recharge to start when you have a skill. So that's going to be a very good one. That's kind of near the top, but just below it, you'll kind of see it as you work your way up when you're looking through the passive tree. Some other ones that look very great and promising here. We have self, mortification, eldritch will, dispensing shield. So this one does gain 20% of maximum energy shield, which is your ES, as additional stun threshold, 20% stun threshold while on full life, 3% maximum life, mana and energy shield. This one's very good. Gain 20% maximum energy shield as additional stun threshold, 28% increased maximum energy shield, gain 12% of maximum energy shield as additional stun threshold. So a lot of these are going to be, abilities that are going to obviously stun, and then you're going to gain mana when you have full life, and your shield is going to be full, which means that your mana will essentially kind of keep itself up. There is another one that's very important here, Eldritch Battery. This one's actually a very good one. Go through it right here. So it converts all of your energy shield to mana. This gives you all your energy shields, right? So you're going to have that maxed, and then this is going to convert all of that to mana, which is going to keep your mana essentially up. That's another one that's going to be very good. Concentrated effect. That's very good for AoEs. This is all support gems. Area of effect. Very good to have on any of your skills. Blind. Blind is another one. Support. For some of your spells, you can have lightning storm. Empowered damage. That essentially skills empowered support skills deal 20% more damage. A lot more damage there. That could be very effective for any of the builds you would like to do for Stormweaver. Controlled destruction. That's another great one. Energy barriers. Another great one for support gems. Clarity. Another good one for support. Arcane surge. Gain arcane surge after spending a total of 100% of your maximum mana on supported skills. Arcane surge lasts for 8 seconds. So that's also another beneficial support there, support gem to apply into one of your skills. I'm going to have to do a lot of, kind of trial and error as we start the beginning of the season. So we'll see what support gems are going to work best with what skill. But I have a general idea kind of what I'll do there. So as well, this video is just insane with, you have the ball lightning, Archmage, and wild shards. So this is your support gem that you apply to one of your spells, and then this is a buff. Archmage is a buff for your skill as well. So Ali actually goes through and explains very well how to retain your mana. This is mana stacking, and just deal large AoE damage with ball lightning here. So.
And I am super excited to share some news about Path of Exile with everyone. On Twitter, GGD did a teaser and they showcase off Archmage, which is going to be a spirit gem that is going to allow you to scale your build off of stacking logic.
Get this full screen here.
mana. This has been an archetype that's been wildly popular in PoE1 and is one of the most loved ways of putting together a character. And a lot of us were starting to get a little bit doomy, thinking that they might not port Archmage over to PoE2 or add something similar to it to allow us to play this playstyle. Now we don't have to worry about that anymore.
And this is the staff I was showing you guys there, the level 90. Just insane. Like the biggest thing is the +5 to all lightning damage spells, spell skills. So if you kind of come across a staff with something on there like that, and anything extra lightning or more damage or increased is still good. Anything with maximum mana, that's essentially what we're going to want to go for. Anything with crit. Residual of Power, a very good spell that we'll be using. This one gains stage when you spend a total of 50% of your maximum mana while in area. Maximum of 4 stage. Buff grants 14% more spell damage per stage. Minimum 1 second between gaining stages. And then sigil radius is 3 meters. Be a large AoE, as you're seeing there. Sigil duration is going to be for like 12 seconds basically overall, which I'll show you here as the
And what
skill.
I wanted to do today was to showcase to you just how much supports there's actually going to be for mana stackers, and why I personally think is going to definitely be one of the stronger archetypes going to PoE2. The main thing to talk about here is the new Mind Over Matter, where instead of 40% of damage taken is converted to mana damage, is 100%, which allows us to
This
not
is
worry
huge.
about our
Mind
life at
over
all,
matter.
get a big mana pool, which we could potentially...
If we can reach this big node here, which is kind of into the monk side of the skills, all damage is taken from mana before life. So that's very good. 50% less mana recovery rate.
Make substantially bigger than what we could ever get on a life pool, meaning we overall have more health. And this allows us to potentially go low life with Pain Attunement, which was never possible before in a build like this.
This is going to be
Allowing us to have a really
pretty
good way of
beneficial
scaling
to
our
convert your
attention.
mana to life.
Not only that, but we have a few other skills that are going to interact very well with mana stacking. A good example is going to be Sigil of Power, which is just going to give you more spell damage that increases in power every time you spend half of your mana pool inside the circle. And we're going to have Mana Tempest, which gives you a portion of your damage as extra lightning damage while standing inside of it, with the downside being that the mana cost of it are going to be exorbitant. Because we're most likely going to have a lot of mana recovery in our build, we should be able to stand in Mana Tempest for substantially longer than normal builds would. And given that it gives you extra damage as lightning, and the new Archmage gem is going to also give you damage as lightning, it's going to synergize together, meaning that all the damage gets ramped up at the same time.
Big
One
time.
interesting
Yep.
thing to mention about all this
It's going to be
is
like
that it's damage
3
extra
times more
lightning,
damage.
meaning we don't necessarily have to play a lightning skill. We could potentially play a fire skill if the mechanics of the fire skill are interesting and warrant us using that instead. One thing that is also very interesting about Archmage builds versus what we could have done in PoE1 is the possibility of you either running Cast on Crit or Cast on Shock. Most likely going to want to go Cast on Shock, at least in the early game, as it'll be substantially easier to constantly trigger than Cast on Crit. But if Archmage does end up working with whatever skill you link to your Cast on Shock, which I don't see why I wouldn't, you can effectively cast 2 spells at once, allowing you to do
Just very big for just starting off. So Cast on Shock is a huge,
if you just played one spell. One
basically spell you're going to want to use right off the start.
Have a self-cast
Cast on
skill
Shock.
that you're using yourself for clear, such as Ball Lightning. And then on your Cast on Shock, have something like Arc, which has really good single target scaling, to then effectively get the best of both worlds at the same time. One potential issue with this is because Archmage adds 5% of your maximum mana on top of your existing mana cost. If both of these are constantly triggering, it might be unsustainable to deal with all this. What we've seen on the passive tree are some really interesting new defensive layers and support for Energy Shield that we never had in PoE1 before. The biggest thing to talk about here is going to be Refocus. This gives you a 10% chance every time you use a skill for Energy Shield to start recharging.
Refocus.
ES recharge is something that happens after a few seconds. ES recharge is something that happens. This gives you a 10% chance every time you...
This is going to be very important to have as well in one of the nodes in the skill tree. 30% increase Energy Shield. We want lots of Energy Shield recharge rate. 10% chance for Energy Shield to recharge to start when you use your skill. That's very important as well when you're kind of focusing on any of the builds.
Use a skill
or
energy shield to start
Sorceress.
recharging. ES recharge is something that happens after a few seconds of not taking damage, and it is unbelievably powerful as it gives you in PoE 1 33% of your energy shield per second, meaning in 3 seconds you're topped off if you were at 0 ES. What we can then do is take Eldritch Battery, which makes it so your energy shield protects your mana instead of your life, which would then allow you to spellcast, and every time you used up mana, if you had Eldritch Battery, it would instead damage your energy shield first. Because we're most likely going to take Mind Over Matter, that means our life would be completely unprotected. So every time we take damage, it'll be taken as mana. But because we have the energy shield protecting it, the energy shield will get hit before the mana does. Because of this, and because the energy shield would get hit, your ES recharge wouldn't always be going, meaning that refocus allows you to not only use the ES as a defensive layer still, but you have a way to immediately restart it, meaning that if mana regeneration isn't good enough to deal with the mana cost of your Archmage, then the ES recharge will most certainly help quite a lot, especially given we're most likely going to want to have a pretty big ES pool to begin with. To add on to this, we are going to need a way to deal with stuns, as we're not going to be stacking life in any sort of mana stacker, meaning we're going to have a small health pool, which means stuns are going to be a lot more prevalent against us. We're getting things such as Dampening Shield, Eldritch Will, and Self-Mortification, meaning if you get a lot of ES, which we'd want to potentially fix our mana problems, we also just get a lot of stun threshold for free.
And we showed that.
We shouldn't have to worry about stuns.
So you're getting a lot of
this. There are other ways.
A lot of ES out of all 3 of those.
Even further.
More energy shields.
Reworked in PoE 2 to where it now gives you mana and increased spell damage per 5 int instead of increased energy shield. And on the passive tree, we have seen Pure Power, which gives you increased.
This is another one, 2% increase.
And Arcane Intensity, which gives you spell damage per 100 mana. This means
so this is insane. These two together.
Self-feedback loop where us stacking intelligence gives us more mana. Having more mana increases Arcane Intensity and Archmage's scaling. And having more intelligence then scales Pure Powers and the intelligence's base scaling as well, making intelligence super potent for both.
Say the ball lightning damage radius. Mana, so you're getting more projectiles.
More total DPS. The other thing to mention about all this,
lots of mana, so you can keep spamming it basically.
Lightning cluster, and we don't know what else the other 2 points on here could possibly do.
We knew what that was, so that's Pure Power.
That one of these points might give you +1 to all lightning skills, as we've seen +1 to chaos skills and +1 to cold skills on the tree, or it could potentially give you something like +1 additional chain for lightning skills, which would be incredibly powerful on something like Arc, because Arc gains 50% more single target damage per additional chain that it has. You could also then potentially bundle this with something like Whispers of Doom, because this is at the top of the tree where all of the nodes I've discussed are, meaning for 1 passive point, you can apply an additional curse to enemies, potentially allowing you to apply conductivity, which you were going to apply in the first place, and combine it with something like Enfeeble to now make enemies do less damage. One gripe about this,
so you can use a lot of the witch passives.
Is that we don't
so using Enfeeble, that curse duration, which you can curse the enemies, curse radius 2 meters, curse normal magic or rare enemies deal 21%. So you're going to be taking less damage. Also, when they're cursed, unique enemies deal 16% less damage, which any kind of, to me, I would think if I'm going to be using, say for a sorceress where they're a little bit more on the weaker side for defenses, this is something you're really going to want to take some kind of reduction to any kind of damage. So you're getting, just the regular enemies, magic or rare, 21%, and then unique enemies, 16% less damage. So that's very good to have. Now, I would highly recommend using that spell.
One gripe about this is that we don't exactly know how much spirit we will have in endgame, and we are going to need Archmage and Cast on Shock, which are 200 spirits. And if we don't have an additional 60 spirit on top of it, or even just 30 spirit on top of it to Blasphemy a curse, it might be really annoying to constantly be applying both of these. But if we do manage to get at least 30 free spirit unreserved, we just manually self-cast something like Conductivity if we need more damage, and then Blasphemy and Enfeeble around us to just always take less damage from enemies. Putting all this together, we have a very
lots of different builds you can potentially unfold here.
Intelligence, energy shield,
you can kind of go like an arc.
Ends up working out multiply
minion,
each other and give you more DPS.
or
And
just
because
straight up
the
spellcaster,
wording on Archmage
which I'll be
and
going.
on Mana Tempest are just damage that you do is added as extra lightning. You can play any skill, meaning you're not specifically tied into a lightning skill. So if there's a very cool cold skill
This is
that
a ball
has
lightning
an
one,
interesting
which I'll
interaction,
be
the way it works,
testing
or if
that
there's
out.
a very interesting fire skill, you could potentially play those as Archmage as well, meaning that the archetype is...
Again, guys, sorry to cut through the video, but I just forgot to mention, if you guys do check out my socials below, I would appreciate it. I'll be on Twitch this Saturday, so November 30th. I'm going to do a giveaway at 12 p.m. Eastern time. I'll start it, and then I will wrap it up at 2 p.m. Eastern, early access key for Path of Exile 2, so you can have a chance there. Check out the my Twitch channel, and then we'll announce the winner at 2 p.m. Eastern time. It's there to win an early access key, and then we'll do another one on launch December 6th. And launch time is at 2 p.m. Eastern time, 11 p.m. Pacific. So that's you'll have a chance there. If you do not have an early access key yet, make sure you tune in and check that out.
Very, very open-ended on how you put it together. Personally, I'm unbelievably interested in a ball lightning arc setup.
And that's exactly what I'm doing. Ball lightning arc setup. It's going to be very strong.
Add in the new chain support, which doubles the
Arc
total
and chain
that arc would have, and arc could potentially get 3
That's your
chains
spell
level 20
and your
as the only
support
level
gem.
10 tooltip, and there could be +1 chain available on the passive tree, meaning that arc could have some potentially silly levels of multiplication for
a lot of multiplication or multi damage effect types.
Chance for spells to cast additional projectiles, and we also have wind shards, which then just gives your spells an additional chance to fire more projectiles.
So wind shards, that's again what we went over earlier. Supported skills have a 20% chance to fire 8 additional projectiles in a circle, which is phenomenal. So supported skills, again, we went over that, fire many additional projectiles. So again, if you're using a ball lightning with arc, you're going to spit out essentially up to 8 additional projectiles in a circle, and then it will just kind of spit around and rapid fire around enemies, doing large AoE damage. So, and then we have Eldritch Battery. And then we have a lot of the other the passives we were talking about, Pure Power, where you're going to get 2% increased damage per 10 intelligence. That's a very big one to have.
Just gives your spells an additional chance to fire more projectiles, meaning in total, we can potentially be spamming
ball lightning,
Archmage at all times.
Wild shards.
Really great clear, while having the arc be our single target clear. I think
you can see just builds,
synergize really well together.
Pushes outwards,
when you have
dealing large AoE damages.
But there's also other things to potentially consider, such as Fireball, Frostball, which is looking really good. As
Frostball could be just as good, if not better.
Really good single target damage.
That's something we can look into as well.
Looks pretty good. The beauty of it is it's a very open-ended platform, so it'll be fun to test around and see what ends up being good. I'm highly excited for Archmage, and I do plan to release a build concept for what I'm personally going to be starting as an Archmage build before early access launches.
I'll be making my own build as well on release day, so we'll probably test around between lightning and ice. I think ice is going to be very strong, but we do have our custom sheet here, so I'll be kind of testing out some of these skills for increased damage against boss types, especially moving into the end game for against pinnacle bosses. That's going to be something I'm very excited for, to see what we can come up with for large damage. Stacking up our ES energy shield and converting it to more damage. So that'll be it's going to be exciting, guys. So that's going to wrap it up here for our Stormweaver Sorceress. Again, it's going to be very fun. A lot of the different classes and ascendancies look awesome, so I'm sure we'll be testing out other classes later down the line, but I'll be starting off with myself as a Sorceress. Stormweaver Ascendancy, so that's going to be exciting. I'm sure all the other ones are going to be great. So if you want to tune into my channel, again, my socials are below. You can check that out, and we will be streaming, most likely doing probably a 30-hour session. Just, give as much footage and go through a lot of the builds that I'm going to test, different variants of the Stormweaver. So we'll do different element types and see what we can come across. Maybe get a little lucky RNG drops. We need biggest thing is we got to get a good staff affixes on there to help us get our buffs. So again, it was a crits, and then anything plus level 2 lightning spells or if you see something you want to go for ice or different element type, fire, and then trying to get as much maximum mana to that. So we'll see what we come across, and it's going to be fun, guys. So again, December 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And again, this Saturday, November 30th, it'll be on my birthday, and we'll generate a giveaway bot there and pick a lucky winner. So hope to see you guys then. I'll be streaming at 12 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern time. So hopefully I'll see you guys then. Until the next time, GG's. If you like this channel, please like and subscribe in the links below. Everybody have a good rest of your day. Cheers.